Kody Brown. People who knew him in his younger days say he was incredibly charismatic, positive, high energy, and charming. There was a long-standing rumor among the teenage community at Kody's high school that he was gay.
I do hear a lot of slack from people in the public, like, that's just disgusting or gross. When we were in high school, we kind of thought that he was gay. Flamboyantly gay. He just had a very feminine side to him. He wore really tight pants. And he always had this thing with his hair, like he would flip it around all the time, like he still does. I'm pretty sure that Kody is not gay.
Tried to be fashionable. I tried to be, nowadays you term it metrosexual.
Kody is very metrosexual.
A fashionable guy who might be in touch with his feminine side.
He dressed impeccably, cared about the way he looked, wore his hair perfectly coiffed, and his personality was overall friendly, smiley, and outgoing. He disappeared to most of his school friend group when he left for his Mormon mission abroad. When they saw him again many years later, they were shocked to find he was married to not one, but 4 women. Welcome down the rabbit hole, my friends. I have been quite busy this past week because we are getting ready to find out our next post. For those of you who are not aware, I currently live in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, for my husband's job. I have 2 children, and we've been living abroad for going on 6 years now. It's been wonderful. I'm grateful for all the times that I've had. It's also been incredibly hard. Coming up for our next post, we're looking at 4 possibilities. South Korea, Brazil, Nairobi, Kenya, and last but certainly not least, the possibility that I can go back to the U.S. for a short period of time while my husband goes to an undisclosed posting. Even though it would be really hard to do a tour away from my husband, I'm kind of on the side of hoping to get back to the U.S. for a little bit, primarily for my kids who have been away from family for a long time and could also use some time at an American school to try to catch up. And for those of you who aren't aware, I have a child with some developmental needs, and I could just really use some of that, some of those American services you get in the public school system that I haven't had access to during his lifetime, really. So we will see what's coming, and I will let you guys know when we find out what our next post will be. Okay, getting back to Kody Brown and the Sister Wives. Fans and critics who are questioning how real the Sister Wives show really is are asking, what do you think Kody Brown is running from? Commenter 1 says, what do you believe Kody Brown is running from? I was blown away at the number of times they have moved as a family. This is not normal behavior. He seems to be the type who's not happy when things are calm, or that if he's unhappy, he thinks a change of scenery will help, but he's failed to recognize that he's unhappy because he's a selfish asshole and will continue to be a selfish asshole no matter where he lives. That's one of my favorite comments. I have a lot of thoughts about Kody Brown, and I'm still going down the rabbit hole on his life. I think a lot of things have been covered up, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes that isn't talked about. But those of you who have kept up with the show and read about all the behind the scenes rumors, what do you think? Is there a nefarious reason that Kody is always on the move? Comment below. Yep, I think that he controls these women and his family by always keeping them embroiled in chaos. They can never settle down, never feel comfortable, or like they understand what's happening with the family choices or finances. So true. He's really keeping them on edge and in chaos. Never want for more or have a valid criticism when the excuse is always, give me a break, we're just settling in, we'll get to fixing that. Plus, and I think this is a great point, plus, it keeps them isolated, which is a core factor needed to get away with ABUSE as serious as his. And the next person seems to agree. If there is always chaos, the family doesn't have time to think about how crappy their lives really are. Look at what happened to Christine when he left her alone during COVID. She came to her senses. I'm sure he won't let that happen again. Wow, I think that this is right on point. There's so much going on with Kody. First, there's the religious aspect, and I think at the beginning of the show and prior to the show, there was a strong belief in polygamous marriage and in this Mormon kind of like subculture they had created. I know that they are not part of the Central Mormon Church, but they do have a church that follows a lot of Mormon theology. And I think they had a true belief in that when the show first started, and that motivated Kody to do some of the things that he did. It also motivated the wives to stay in their marriages. I think as time has gone on and they've gained quite a bit of money, they've been able to move in circles of people who also have money and are just outside of the community they've lived in for the majority of their lives. They've grown somewhat in certain ways. You know, they may have grown into being horrible narcissistic assholes, but everybody grew in their own way. But they've grown in such a way as I don't think it's just the religion that keeps them doing what they're doing. I think many of them have moved past that. We see that in Christine for sure, who's kind of saying, I really don't believe in this anymore. And it would not surprise me in the least if every other wife, as well as Kody, feels the same way, that the religion part of it is no longer the motivating factor. But they're all bound together by the relationships that they've had in the past and their relationships with their children and the intertwining of their children. They're also bound by this idea that they put out to the world and on TV that they were going to be the ultimate example of what a polygamous family can and should be. They put that out into the world, and now it's very difficult for them to back off of living that lifestyle. And what these commenters have to say is so true. For Kody, it doesn't really matter that much to him because he's got 3 extra wives who are kind of just living independently anyway, and they have plenty of money. They're making money on the side. They each have their own little job that they're doing. They make money from the show. He's living his life high and mighty in a nice home with Robin. So it doesn't matter much to him whether or not Christine, Janelle, Mary are happy, because ultimately he's getting a lot of what he wants in his own life. But in order to continue on with the facade, which I think is a big part of what motivates Kody at this point, he doesn't want to let down the facade that he created. He doesn't want to fall from his high throne of being this great example of polygamy. And so he kind of tricks himself into thinking, even if it's on TV that Christine had this problem and Christine left me, that doesn't mean that I failed. I can still hold on to my other wives, to my other children, and feel successful in my life's decisions. And the number one reason why he's hanging on to it is I ultimately believe that both Kody and Robin realize that they would be out an awful lot of money if that show didn't continue on.
This underwriting situation with us financing this house is very unusual.
No, I don't think so.
Will, for most people, it's not unusual for us.
Not for us.
What we've discovered is that because I'm so intertwined financially with all the wives and interconnected, that anytime I'm involved in financing something, it's
very confusing for anybody who looks at our finances.
Just, and the reason is that we're doing bad finances is because our family tax return is 50 pages.
And I think it's also because we're a plural family and our paperwork is complicated because Kody is connected to all of his wives financially in different ways. So they keep asking for more stuff and more stuff and more stuff. And it's starting to spread into the other wives as well, like Janelle and Mary and Christine, everybody. They're just wanting so
after
much
this
information.
experience, I'm finally going to say, wives, you each finance your own home alone and keep me.
I also think they understand that the big draw to the show has a lot more to do with Mary, Janelle, and Christine and kind of the ins and outs of their lives and what they've been going through, and that a show just about Kody and Robin nobody would watch. For that reason, it's important to Kody to keep these wives moving, to have them in chaos, so that he can keep this charade going on and on for as long as possible.
It's about one conversation. I have a lot of thoughts. So I'm going to break it down into 5 global discussion points. The first is, I thought this whole thing was fake. It didn't feel like these are the real conversations that were happening. I think that the Brown family was asked by TLC to go back and record these conversations. It just didn't feel real to me. The level of vitriol wasn't there, especially the conversation at the start of the episode between Kody and Robin, which is a surprise, by the way, because I think Robin's the actress of the group, and it seemed like terrible acting to me.
This person states, it's called a geographical cure, where someone thinks a new location will fix all of their problems, but fails to recognize they are the problem. So they carry these issues place to place, creating a cycle of chaos. Yes, I totally agree. He needs chaos. However, I have read that the reason they moved from Vegas was because they were unable to get traditional financing on their homes and the balance of their loans were due. They had a balloon payment and they were unable to refinance. This is 100% true and something that I've spoken about in prior episodes. It is highly encouraged in the polygamous culture that people take out these major, huge loans and eventually they'll need to make a balloon payment on it. The idea is that they keep the houses for a short period of time. They allow the value to appreciate. They're hoping to make more money when they sell the home so that they can pay the loan back. And I definitely think that's what was coming up due for Kody and the sister wives. They couldn't stay in Vegas because they never had the money to be able to afford all 4 of those homes.
I'm telling you now, with Vegas, we can pay off Coyote Pass, and then could actually build on it.
How much do the sister wives make? It's a long answer, so join me for...
I'm Robin Leach with those champagne wishes and caviar dreams. We all look forward to being with you on the next edition of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
But in this case, instead of caviar and champagne, probably beer and pizza, except he doesn't drink, so I don't even know what the replacement would be, but anyway. Before we get going, I want to frame a couple things, because all the articles are, staggering net worth. Net worth and cash on hand are nowhere near the same thing. So he probably has about $20 in the bank, but owns a house. You get what I'm saying? And when we're going through this, I'm probably going to say only or something like that at a time. It's not only. This is a lot of money, but to us, yeah, it's a lot more than it is to them. And even having all that money, it was spent so improperly that he had to borrow $180,000 to pay a tax debt last year. That in mind, let's go. Kody and Robin, the bulk of their net worth is their house in Flagstaff, which is a very, very nice house. However, they do live way outside of their means, especially after they had to take the season 12 pay cut, which was quite hefty. So if you watch this, and even if you hadn't, around seasons 10, 11, it turned into a real snooze fest, and TLC saw that. So they're like, we're going to go ahead and cancel you guys. Because they were getting paid a lot at that point. They were getting paid a certain percentage of the ad revenue from every episode, which would equate to about $180K, somewhere in there, per season, per person, for all 5 of them. And you know what? That's a lot of money for a show that nobody is watching. So in his constant fight to stay relevant and on TV, Kody made a deal with TLC wherein he took 5 for the price of 1. So instead of getting their $180K each per season, that was $180K for the entire family per season. I know what you're saying, $180K is a lot of money, and it is, we could liberate on that, but they're trying to support 5 grown-ass people, 18 kids, and I know that a lot of their kids are grown, but you still have to loan them money here and there, help them out. They don't disappear when they turn 18, no matter how much Kody would like them to. Around that season is when you'll notice a huge uptick in the wives being part of MLMs. Now, I don't agree with those, but that's a conversation for another day. But Christine used those to hustle because she had to pay for insurance coverage for Isabel because Mr. I'm Worth $1 Million does not provide health insurance for his children. Yeah. She also had to pay all of the hospital expenses, and she paid the entire bill from when Truly was in the hospital back in the day, which was about $400,000. Yet another reason the men don't want to be on the birth certificates, because you can't come after someone who's not that child's parent for the hospital bills without a DNA test and a hell of a lot of legal procedure and paperwork. They also knowingly committed fraud, so that has some implications also. Their financial history does really suggest that they were participating in bleeding the beast, which typically includes charging up a bunch of credit cards, filing bankruptcy, which all of them did, getting a lot of services, keeping data off the birth certificate so those don't get interrupted, that sort of thing. So as far as we know, until numbers come out, they are each receiving about $36,000 a season, so they're probably subsisting off of their outside ventures because that is a negligible amount compared to their lifestyle.
And then this commenter talks a lot about how destabilizing things have been for the kids, specifically talking about Janelle's kids when they had to move from Vegas. Because I do remember that the children seemed to have settled down well in Vegas, and then suddenly they were kind of ripped away from all of that. The commenter says, "That's why I'm mad. Janelle didn't refuse to move again. We all could see how well the kids were doing. Yeah, Janelle, so much for putting the kids first. Why pull them out of their good, stable lives they had created in spite of the parents they had?" Gabe was, and this is about leaving Vegas. The person says Gabe was going to be a junior, had scholarship money, and was on varsity wrestling. He asked to live with Maddie, and Janelle said that wasn't an option. He was top 10 of 850 students, and she said a smaller school would be better for him? How? Smaller class sizes in general are better, but we don't know if that's the case if the teacher-to-student ratio is the same. Larger schools also tend to have more programs, electives, and extracurriculars. And another person goes on to agree, "My heart was breaking for that poor kid. He even said he was in line to be captain of his wrestling team and was lining up scholarships. How many other kids age 15, 16 have their lives planned out to that extent? Normal parents would have been proud as hell of a kid like that and would have bent over backwards to help him facilitate his dreams." I 100% agree with this, and it is one of my major complaints about what I do feel is real about the show. I think that it's very real that they move around a lot. I think it's very real that they tell their kids to kind of suck it up and just move with the family. The family is the most important thing. There's very little acknowledgement of the children as individuals by Kody because there's so many of them. I think the mothers try to get some of that individuality respected by the family, but it's not always the case. I think, like, for example, Mariah got a lot more of her needs met. Mariah got a lot more attention. Mariah got a lot more of her mom making bids to ensure that Kody participated in her life because Mary only had one child and she chose to be very much focused on that one child. Mariah got some things that the other kids didn't get, and this is one example where Gabe had a dream that he could have potentially lived out in a really positive way in Vegas, and that was taken away from him so that his parents could move on to a different location. I do think if they were in a marriage where it was just Janelle and Kody and they had this many children, they would have been able to at least pay more attention to what was going on with Gabe and find some way to potentially keep him where he was or supplement like what he was going to be losing by ensuring that wherever they went had the kind of wrestling program he would need. But I just really think that they couldn't do that because there were all these other people they had to take into consideration. Whatever the issue was that was moving them to Arizona, probably something Robin needed having to do with her children and her life. It was like that had to come first. And that's a big part of who Kody is, where he basically expects everyone to revolve around what he thinks is best for the whole family. He doesn't want to respect their own individual needs and uniqueness. Okay, and then we have another commenter stating that she doesn't think it was about the money at all, leaving Vegas. This commenter says, "It wasn't even about money though. The market in Vegas was bad. Christine legit lost money. That's so hard to do. Notice how now Kody says they need to sell Christine's house to pay off Coyote Pass. So he's allowing that the only money they have to pay off Coyote Pass is in Robin's home, and she will never move, so then they will never build. They're trapped in this thing of not being able to sell the home to get the money because she'd have nowhere to live, and not being able to build her new place to live in Coyote Pass because they can't pay it off while she's in the house. It's insanely stupid. They could have bought Coyote Pass and stayed in their Vegas homes and paid it off and built while staying in Vegas. Homes in Flagstaff are way more expensive. They took a massive loss on that. I've thought that too. I also wonder if Kody's looking for that pie in the sky. He seems to get excited about new ideas to make money, but then he loses interest when he doesn't get immediate results and finds he might have to work hard to achieve anything. That's interesting. I do think Kody is a different person now than he was 20 years ago or even 10 years ago when he first started the show. I get the idea that there were periods of time in his life where he did try to work very hard. He worked in sales, he worked in advertising, and I think he was a hard worker who tried to make money for his family. I think a lot of things have changed over the years, and they have realized that the TLC show is a great way for them to bring income in. Kody has also stood by and watched how Mary and Christine and Janelle have been able to make money off of doing these multi-level marketing companies. And I think in some ways he realizes he wouldn't be able to make the kind of money that they do. He sees them as kind of like being cash cows for him at this point in time. And I've also mentioned before that most recently he and Robin filled out legal forms to open up a business that is supposed to be some kind of production company for films. So who knows what they're going to do with that. It wouldn't surprise me if it's some sort of like Mormon production company where they're going to make movies geared towards Mormonism. He makes up scenarios on why they have to move. Utah, it was the government. Vegas to Flagstaff, my opinion, stricter gun laws after the shooting, and of course, Robin needed to follow her boy. Every time they moved, Robin had family in that state. Just a thought. His personality spectrum can often mean he can go easily from one extreme idealization to extreme devaluation very quickly. If he runs out of supply in one place, then a new place might look shiny and full of new supply. My guess is that he's running from a lack of attention and boredom. It's amazing how that type literally finds it entertaining to create chaos and upheaval in so many lives and not even think twice about it. A lot of people on this thread seem to think the move to Flagstaff was the only one. They moved a ton. If I remember, it was around 15 times, which is absolutely bonkers. I think the ideas about destabilization, Kody thinking the next move will magically solve all their problems, addiction to chaos and drama as a distraction from yourself, are all pretty accurate. In the early days, it might have been a byproduct of poverty and not having a stable place to rent and needing to upgrade as their family grew. At one point, when one of his kids moved away, Kody says, "I'm worried she's running away. I just don't know what from what." And I think that was some serious projection. And I really like this one. I think it's true as well. He is a poor financial planner, which causes chaos and tons of moving. This commenter definitely agrees. Finances. Read their book. Before the show, they were often moving because Kody couldn't keep a job. Janelle talks about being frustrated with Kody and Mary because they quit their jobs once when they couldn't get the time off they wanted. Kody talks in the first episode about him working sporadically at his sales job. I've worked in sales most of my career, and the last thing you can do in sales is work sporadically and be successful. They've also capitalized in the past by timing debt between the adults and then filing for bankruptcy. Even now, they've relied on TLC money, but they live paycheck to paycheck. Okay, friends, it's getting pretty late here, and I need to head off to bed. There's so much more to talk about when it comes to Kody Brown's history and what he's running from behind the scenes of the TLC show. Please leave your comments below. I'd love to know what you've read about and what you've heard when it comes to the real lives of Kody and the sister wives. I'm off to bed, but I hope you take some time to head down your own rabbit hole.